Hello everybody, and welcome to the next installment in our series of interviews in relation to our upcoming event ESF MENA 2021, the Energy and Sustainability Forum for the MENA region. So my name is Stefan Chapman and I am the Vice President at Euro Petroleum Consultants. We are an independent consultancy who are active in the oil, gas and petrochemical sectors, as well as being the organisers of ESF MENA. So ESF MENA is a new regional conference following on from the success of our inaugural ESF Europe, which was held earlier on in the year in a virtual capacity. By focusing on decarbonisation and sustainability in the downstream industry, ESF MENA will support the collaborations, the discussions and the development of sustainable energy future in which I am sure the Middle East downstream industry will continue to play a leading role. So today I'm very honoured to be joined by one of our keynote speakers, Dr. Bob Maughon. Bob is the Executive Vice President, Sustainability, Technology and Innovation at Sabic, as well as being the Chief Technology and Sustainability Officer at Sabic. So Bob, a warm welcome to you. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us today.
Excellent. Thanks, Stefan. Really excited to be here and actually looking forward to the event as well.
Thank you very much. And it's great to be able to talk to you today on some of the key topics facing the industry, our industry in its journey to a more sustainable future. So if I may, I'd like to dive straight into our first question. So over the last few months, we've witnessed many of the Middle East producers begin their pivot to sustainability, including some very exciting project announcements. How well do you think the region is positioned to adapt, and what do you believe are the main opportunities for the region by reducing its carbon emissions?
Yeah, look, I think the region as a whole has a lot of elements of strength heading into this transition, right? I think, and you see that tied to some of the announcements that have been made and maybe made recently, but also made really over the last decade. I mean, I'm really proud of Sabic's positioning in this space. You know, we've been putting out a sustainability report since 2011 and been committed to the overall focus on sustainability across circular materials, across carbon, across waste, water, and a number of issues, you know, tied to our sustainability goals. So I think for us, it's a critical element, not only right now, but it has been a critical element in our strategy. But I think you see the same in many companies in the Middle East. And, you know, I think as you go forward in this transition that we're all facing, I think there are a number of things that can play favorably in the position of the Middle East. I mean, one is the potential for low-cost solar and wind in the region. I think the reality is the access, especially in solar, to sunlight, the investments that are going on in the kingdom around renewable energy can be really a potential game changer, right, in terms of long-term cost of the renewable energy and making these energy transition projects affordable. So that's clearly one, a commitment by the governments in the region to make investments. You know, you look at investments like NEOM that's happening in KSA, you look at other investments across the region around hydrogen, around renewable energy, around carbon capture, you know, are all the elements that you want to see. And then lastly, technology, right? I think that you see from a Sabic perspective, from Aramco, from many players in the region, a focus, a commitment to investing in new technologies. And I think the region itself, in terms of its technology development organically and out licensing versus, you know, a history of more in licensing, has really advanced. And I think that you have the right elements to bring new technologies forward, a willingness to collaborate, which I think is at the core of the Middle East and its history. Along with the access to the renewable energy, the government engagement and support, as you probably saw in the G20, the commitment around the circular carbon economy that happened while in Saudi Arabia, are all just elements of the pieces you need to be successful. It doesn't guarantee success, but these are the things you want to see, and as part of this transition from my perspective.
No, I totally agree. I think it certainly highlights what you've mentioned. It certainly highlights that the region, the producers, technology providers in the region will be drivers. I think you'll be at the forefront of this energy transition. If we look at the region, we all know it's a big hydrocarbon producers. So how do you think the region can find a complementary role for liquid fuels and also to build options for the future with the assets already in place that they already have?
Yeah, look, I think this is one of the biggest opportunities and challenges, right? I mean, you have an existing infrastructure, existing feedstock, an advantaged feedstock for the region. And look, I believe the liquid fuels and natural gas will play a role in that transition. And I think that, as we look to near to midterm, you see a lot of announcements around blue ammonia, blue hydrogen. You see that will be a critical place, and it's a place where those hydrocarbon feedstocks can be advantaged and will play a role. But I think that at the end of the day, you also see within the region a recognition that the pathway towards green hydrogen, green ammonia is also there, right? And the commitments around renewable energy investment, I think, are consistent with the view that, yes, hydrocarbons will play a role for our near to midterm future, but they're not going to play the full role in the conversion, right? And I think you see that leadership and recognition of those places. And look, from a fuel perspective, we're very closely partnered with Aramco on areas like crude to chemicals, because there's also recognition that we also need to look at new markets on the hydrocarbon side, right? They will still play a very critical role for the downstream chemical markets for the foreseeable future. I mean, even if we in the downstream side look to lower our carbon footprint by looking at alternate forms of energy, for example, electrification of our crackers or leveraging blue hydrogen, we still need those feedstocks to make the products that we make, right? So at the end of the day, I think everybody needs to look at this as more about balance, managing the transition effectively with real technologies that work, can provide a competitive economic advantage or cost to make them realistic and feasible for implementation. And there will be a clear role in that transition for those hydrocarbon fuels. But at the end, I think what I'm enthused at is that we're looking beyond the current advantages within the Middle East and looking towards what future advantages could be there. And I think that the investments around wind, around solar, around renewable energy are being made in a region that has an advantage based on hydrocarbon fuel. So there is a recognition that both are going to play a role in the future.
Yeah, I think diversification will play a key, and then like you say, I think hydrocarbon fuels will still have a role. It's just that role will evolve, and to meet a new energy mix, I think it's going to be several factors for the future.
And on that point, just thinking about sustainability and those fuels, I mean, one of the advantages in the region is that today they're one of the lowest carbon footprint producers. So when you look at the constant pressure that's going to be there, the producers that can produce the natural gas, the oil, and the liquids that we need, and do so in the most sustainable way with the least amount of leakage and the most efficient processes, are going to also have an advantage in that transition. And that's another strength of the kingdom, specifically in the broader Middle East place.
Yeah, that's for sure. Efficiency will definitely play a major role. Moving on to something that's a hot topic, I think it's been discussed at many conferences. We hear it in the media, the term circular economy. And Sabic, like many companies, recently have adopted a high yield circular economy strategy. I think it's been in place for a while. What do you believe are the tangible next steps needed for larger scale implementation? And what role does collaboration play in closing the loop on waste?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, I'm very proud of the role that Sabic has played in the broader circular plastics, circular economy topic. This goes back really to 2019, where we really first commercially launched products based on our polyolefin franchise around circular plastic, certified circular materials based on pyrolysis, and using that pyrolysis oil in our crackers to produce our building blocks really for the entire downstream. And we're committed to the next round of that. If you've probably seen the announcements, we're currently constructing as part of our joint venture with Plastic Energy the next scale up of that technology, so that we can not only produce but also ensure that we process that material in a way that allows greater usage within our crackers. And we have a next level of investment in our plans, right? So I think the key right now is companies taking tangible steps, taking some risk, piloting these technologies, engaging with the value chain. And you mentioned collaboration, right? It's engaging with our current value chain, which would be, you know, the brand owners, the converters, the OEMs that we work with to produce our materials, but also the waste side of the value chain, and collection and sortation and those areas as well, and obviously the waste conversion technologies. Collaborating with different players than we're used to collaborating with, testing out the business models. And the way you're going to scale this is by taking these steps and learning from each one of these scale-ups that you do, so that you can, again, deliver something that has sustainable economics for the future. You know, I'm thrilled with the path that we're on. I mean, you know, what I can say is that, you know, we're currently fully allocated on the initial volume of certified circular polymers as part of our TrueCircle platform. We're now committed as well to the volume coming out of the new facility that we're constructing that'll be operational in 2022. And the demand from the value chain, from the consumer, from the brands is extremely high for these products. So look, the market is there. And the market is also understanding the additional cost and complexity with implementing new technologies. But the key, of course, to move forward is, you know, the market understands that complexity and cost, but is going to be unwilling to accept that complexity and cost in the future, right? So it's important for us to continue to advance the technology front, to bring the capital and conversion costs down, continue to widen the window of technologies and products that we can make via these circular products, and as well look at the full complement of solutions. So, you know, our portfolio isn't just about, you know, advanced or recycling or chemical recycling, as some call it. It's really a number of pillars, right? It's around, you know, having certified renewable-based polymers in the portfolio to bring lower carbon footprint. It's around mechanical recycling solutions, because at the end, really, it's going to be, in my view, an integrated approach around, you know, maximizing mechanical recycling, which is the lowest cost, lowest footprint solution. Using advanced recycling solutions where you can't access those products through mechanical recycling. And then looking at different services that we need to provide, design for recycling, right? I think a critical piece that players like Sabic and the value chain have to play is thinking about how we redesign products to be more recyclable in the first place, right? And I think we have, in many cases over the last, you know, couple of decades, we've become more and more complex in the packaging structures that are used to provide, you know, maximum benefits and shelf stability and aesthetics and usability and a number of features for our consumers. But at the end, in some cases, over-design these products, right? So I think we have to take a step back with the value chain and optimize the design to maximize recyclability. And, you know, at the end of the day, lastly, we need to look at new partnership models, or new business models. And for us, closed loop projects is a key piece of that, right? How do we engage on the retail side, the converter side, the brand owner side to close the loop around a certain product to maximize the uniformity of the material, to ensure maximum recyclability of the material. So those are different partnerships that maybe we would have done in the past. And to be fair, others in the value chain would have done in the past. But you see everyone willing to do that now. You know, a brand owner willing to partner with a resin supplier to make sure it has the right pipeline of solutions. A retailer engaging with those same parties to ensure that the supply chain management of that material can meet their needs. Different technology providers like the waste converters, like Plastic Energy and many others that are out there on the conversion technologies. And then even the engagement upstream on the waste collection side to ensure that you have the right feedstock. So I think you're going to see an evolution of the collaboration models used out there. I think you're going to see a lot of testing of these different approaches. But I think at the end, companies that are willing to span all of those pillars, right, to look at design for recycling, to look at new business models like closed loop and others, to look at mechanical and chemical recycling together as part of their strategy, and as well evaluating the role that certified renewable-based materials will play, are all going to be a piece of that equation. And I'm excited by it. I mean, certainly from a technology perspective, there's a great need for investment and advancement, but you see the draw from the market, and that's actually what matters more than anything, right? The consumers will decide what path we take, and you see that momentum there today, which is why we're committed as a business to moving it forward.
Certainly, you know, like you said, exciting times, lots of innovation. I think we need to get the building blocks in place. I think, like you said, step by step. encouraging collaborations, like you said as well, between companies that in the past haven't worked together. So you need to build those relations. You need to see how the synergies of, because different companies work different ways. So I think that's going to be interesting to look at. So definitely interesting times ahead for the whole industry. I mentioned earlier that we had our inaugural ESF Europe. Initially, it was to be in person in Paris to tie in with the Paris Agreement. Unfortunately, with the conditions we're living in at the moment, it was a virtual event. At that event, we had a lot of panel discussions, and the importance of innovative technologies and R&D in the drive towards a more sustainable model was frequently highlighted and stressed during the discussions. So with this in mind, what role does R&D play at Sabic in particular in the development and scale up of your decarbonisation technologies?
Yeah, like, for Sabic, right, it's essential, right, that we recognize that this transition requires new processes, new technologies, new implementations. It's why when I came into Sabic that the sustainability role was also combined with the technology role, because there's a recognition that, and I think you've probably seen this with other companies as well, sustainability in the past might have been more around a more defensive role within the company, an external positioning of the activities, managing risk, managing product safety, managing reliability and waste out of your assets. But it's not today, right? You can't be in a role like this today, and you obviously have to focus on those things, but you can't solely focus on those. You need to be advancing real projects, real solutions that can address either circular carbon, carbon neutrality, circular plastics, and even product stewardship and product safety for the future. So it's essential that it's moved from positioning of your activities to driving new initiatives. And so for us, technology is very integrated into it. When you look at our carbon neutrality roadmaps that we're working on very closely with the business today, it's all about leveraging technologies that can help us achieve that goal today, but also advancing new technologies that will be required to meet those future targets, and developing a real roadmap that maps those technologies to implementation timelines within the company. So, I'm excited for our teams, because this requires one, pushing the envelope on technology, but it also brings an urgency within the business to implement those changes, right? Because they come with risk, but there's a recognition that we can't achieve the targets without moving forward with new levels of risk. And as you highlighted, collaboration. They're expecting us to also collaborate with partners in technology at other companies and in the value chain in more open ways than we would have done in the past. I mean, one that I'm really proud of, that has been communicated externally, is that we advanced a project with both BASF and Linde on electric cracking for our olefin production. And we're advancing that into the pilot stage, hopefully targeting 23 for the startup of that facility. But that's taking new technology that BASF, Sabic, and Linde had towards cracking, different approaches, different risks associated with those. We're bringing those together and jointly taking the risk on testing and improving those technologies, and not just the key element of the furnace, but also the broader integration of that technology in the asset, because there's considerable risk in converting the olefin cracker, which has been in existence for many decades now, and in fact impacts all the downstream chemical production for the most part. And so it's important that technology play a role in making that transition, but done in a way that we're confident in the implementation. And very proud of that case, but also excited by the support within the company for the need for technology to drive this transition. And that's if anything the targets and the external pressure, the business alignment to achieve these goals, and the recognition that technology is essential to that transition, have been what have mobilized us so much. I mean, when you look at energy efficiency, which I would say if you go back 5 years ago was really where the focus was. You can drive a lot of efficiency by automation within your assets, better use of digital tools, better incremental leveraging of technologies that can, reduce waste and improve overall integration within your facility. But you don't always need breakthrough innovation to sort of drive that those early efficiency targets. But those tools don't get you to a carbon neutrality target. Those tools get you an incremental optimization. And that's, I think, what's unique about the situation today.
Yeah, no, those are more for low-hanging fruits, quick wins. But I think the transition definitely presents our industry with certain challenges. But I think those challenges, like you rightly say, will drive creative thinking, will drive innovation. So yeah, I think interesting and exciting times ahead. We have time for one last question. It's a question that I ask all our guests to close out the interview. Peering into the crystal ball in a time which is characterized by all this uncertainty, all this change, what do you think the 2030 petchem producer in the Gulf region especially will look like, and what are the big ticket items we will see the industry invest in this coming decade?
Yeah, look, I think 2030 is a good horizon to look at, right? I mean, I think if you look at the downstream producers, you clearly by 2030 are going to see significant scale up and implementation of technologies around circular plastics. So I think you're going to see better integration upstream with the waste producers. I'm very proud, for example, in the kingdom of our collaboration between Sabic and the Saudi Investment Recycling Company to look at how we can manage waste within the kingdom and convert it as well. But I think you're going to see examples like that throughout the Middle East. By that point, the technologies will then de-risk, and it's really going to be around just securing the feedstock, the waste, and the right partnerships and investment timing for those conversions. But I think you're going to see a much greater integration around circular plastics, greater investment around mechanical recycling as well. I was really excited. I took my first business trip back to Saudi Arabia over the last 2 weeks. I just got back this weekend, and it was great with my teams at our Sabic facility looking at some of the mechanical recycling initiatives that are going on in the kingdom. I think you're going to see greater investment in that part of the value chain within the Middle East on the conversion of waste materials and development of products and applications built off recycled plastic at a much greater degree. So I think that's one piece on circular plastics. I think you're going to see an evolution of the downstream value chains to manage those, the upstream value chains as well for the collection. The investments and scale up of technologies around circular plastics. I think also in that 2030 window, you're going to see the implementation again of some of the bigger energy transition projects that are going to be focused on decarbonization. So I think you're going to see the piloting and demonstration of large scale projects around hydrogen, around ammonia, around olefins, the leveraging of renewable energy and the buildup of renewable energy in the region. I think you're going to see a lot of those things happening at world scale. We obviously have a journey to 2050 and beyond as we go through this transition, but I think at 2030, the world scale implementation of many of these technologies will really be starting. And I'm excited to see that transition happen. Excited to hopefully be a part of that 2030 time. But I think we're putting the right elements in today so that the right solutions can be implemented. That we don't solve, and this is a critical point for me, we don't solve the plastics problem and create a greater carbon problem, or vice versa, right? It's very important that we make smart solutions in the technologies that enable us to address both of those challenges with the right set of technologies. But I think you're going to see those elements really over the next 5 years coming together to define the path forward, and the next 5 really building up the capacity to implement those technologies. And I'm again very excited to hopefully have Sabic play a role in that and the broader Middle East as well.
Thank you. That's a great positive note to end on. So thank you very much for your time today, Bob. It was a real pleasure for me to talk with you today. Thank you for sharing your insights on these key topics. And we really look forward to continuing the discussion at ESF MENA later on in the year. Until then, I'd like to say have a good day, and also to stay safe and stay well. So thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks, Stefan. Really enjoyed it.